This is our second week of talking about gifts that transform us, gifts that change us, and gifts that change the world. And the thing is, sometimes we receive a gift, sometimes we give a gift, and sometimes you are the gift. Last week we talked a little bit about the gift of curiosity, that God gives us that desire to know more about God. God gives us that yearning for something more. That God puts that in our hearts to say, is there something more? Is there something better? And God draws us into God's life with that curiosity. This week, we'll talk about the gift of bearing witness. I know, bearing witness. It's dangerous to talk about being a witness in the Lutheran Church, because we tend to associate being a witness with, that kind of canned evangelism. That kind of, I'm going to knock on your door and tell you, here's the 5 steps that you need to take in order to be saved. But that's not what we're talking about today. It is true that we could probably be a little bit more vocal. But this is more about how we live. Jesus says, you are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world. And there's always a temptation to take this as a command, right? This is what you need to be. This is what you need to do. This is how you need to act in order to be faithful. But see, that's not what he says. He doesn't say, here are the things that you need to do in order to be the light of the world. He doesn't say, this is the way you need to accomplish things if you want to be the salt of the earth. It's just declarative. It's not a command, it's just a statement of fact. You are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world. That's who you are. As people who believe in and follow Jesus, that is who you are. You can't help it. Now you might say, well, wait a minute, doesn't Jesus himself say in here, but if the salt loses its saltiness, then it's good for nothing, and we just throw it out into the road? Can salt lose its saltiness? Can you take the salt flavor out of the salt? Now there are plenty of commentators that try to do exegetical acrobatics. There's your phrase of the day, exegetical acrobatics, which is, how can we interpret this to try to make sense of it? And they say, well, in the ancient world, salt was not pure, and there were many additives in it, and so if the salt got wet, it would dissolve the real salt, and you would be left with this white powder that didn't have any taste anymore. Nice try. Nice try. I don't think so. I think what Jesus is trying to say is, no, you can't lose your saltiness. You can't. It's who you are. And I think that matches up with what he says about light. He says, you're the light of the world. Who takes a lamp, right? Who takes a burning lamp and puts it under a bushel basket? Well, somebody that wants to burn their house down. It doesn't happen. Right? We're not going to put it. And then he says, look, a city on a hill cannot be hid. You can't hide it. Your light is going to shine in the world. You are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world. So what does salt do? Well, if you read the news and you listen to the medical experts, salt gives you high blood pressure. That's what it does, right? So, that's what we think of when we think of salt. And maybe that is part of our job as followers of Jesus, to give people high blood pressure. As long as we're giving the right people high blood pressure. Because being the salt of the earth does mean challenging injustice. Being the salt of the earth does mean speaking up for the vulnerable. Being the salt of the earth means challenging the status quo. So yes, we will give some people high blood pressure, and that's a good thing. But in the ancient world, salt was much more than just a seasoning. As you may know, in Roman times, salt was often used as a type of currency. That's where we get the word salary, because people get paid in salt. It was valuable. So you, as the salt of the earth, are valuable. You are precious in God's sight. You are important to the functioning of the world. And in the ancient world, salt was a preservative. Fish and meat were salted to preserve them. In the days before refrigeration, salt is what kept things edible. It's what enabled people to eat, enabled them to survive. And I think as followers of Jesus, we preserve what is good. As a community of faith, we preserve some of those traditions and actions that are good from long ago. We are the people who care for the vulnerable. Now, sometimes that seems like an old-fashioned idea. People should just take care of themselves. I'm sure you've heard that before. But that's not who we are. We keep that alive. But salt also draws out the flavor of things. Now, salt is not something that you eat all by itself. Anybody here go home and shake the salt out of the salt shaker and just eat it? Anybody? I didn't think so. I do that sometimes, but I'm weird. Most people don't do that. You just don't eat salt by itself. You put salt into a recipe, and that salt works synergistically to bring out the other flavors. It enhances the whole experience of the meal. That's the point of it. Salt is part of a greater whole. And it doesn't take a whole lot of salt to make a difference. Just like you. It doesn't take a whole lot of followers of Jesus to make a difference in the world. We work with what's good in the world to make it even better. We bring out the best in complex situations by our presence, by our words, by our deeds. Some truth, and especially some love, can transform an entire situation. You are also the light of the world. Now I realize that can sound a little bit on the arrogant side, because in John chapter 8, Jesus himself says, I am the light of the world. But those two things go together. We are the body of Christ. We are Jesus in the world. That's what it means. Christ lives in us. We are the light of the world. And Hannah told us, in the words of Isaiah, what that means, what it means for us to be the light of the world. Isaiah says, is not this the fast that I choose? To loose the bonds of injustice, to undo the thongs of the yoke, to let the oppressed go free, and to break every yoke. Is it not to share your bread with the hungry, to bring the homeless poor into your house? When you see the naked, to cover them, and not to hide yourself from your own kin. Then your light shall break forth like the dawn, and your healing shall spring up quickly. Your vindicator shall go before you. If you remove the yoke from among you, the pointing of the finger, the speaking of evil, if you offer your food to the hungry and satisfy the needs of the afflicted, then your light will shine in the darkness, and your gloom be like the noonday. When we care for the poor and vulnerable, we are being Christ in the world. We are the light of the world. When we loose the bonds of injustice, when we challenge unjust policies, when we speak up and say, that's not right, we are the light of the world. We are the light of the world. And you know that we do this. We do this together. as a congregation, and we do this individually in our lives, where we speak and do the things that make the world a little bit better, that make it look a little more like the kingdom of God. You know, we talk a lot about the wells that we do with living water, but I think that's because that's one of the best examples of being salt and light in the world. I mean, what is more important to life than water? Maybe air. But if people don't have clean water, life is not going to be good. And you have done that year after year in Advent to give people clean water. That is being the light of the world. You know, and individually in your lives, when you make that extra effort, when you say that extra word, when you give that extra gift, especially when you give the gift of yourself and your time, then you're being the light of the world. I asked Mrs. Anderson if I could pick on her this morning. You know, and Mrs. Anderson's easy to pick on because she's shared a message here. Right? So she has shared from herself the light that Christ has given her. And that's a beautiful thing. But you don't have to come up here to do that, is the thing. I also asked Mrs. Wheeler if I could pick on her. And, you know, Mrs. Wheeler works at Kohl's. And when she's at Kohl's, one of the things that she often says to people is, "Today you are God's favorite." Simple phrase. Simple phrase. But imagine hearing that in Kohl's. You know, it has an impact. It makes the world a little bit better. So my challenge to all of you this week is to be a little bit more aware of where you are the salt of the earth and where you are the light of the world. You see, because you are. This isn't some lofty goal that you have to work hard to achieve. And I didn't say it, Jesus said it. You are the light of the world. You are the salt of the earth. Thanks be to God.